In this video, we're going to start to clean up our setColor function. As I mentioned in the last video, there's definitely a little bit more appropriate syntax that we can use here to decide exactly what color we're trying to work on. So we could refactor this. Instead of having a series of if statements, we could instead use a switch statement. So that would look like this. I could instead say, instead of the if statement right here, I could say switch over color. And then open up a curly brace, and notice how I've still got the closing curly brace from our if statement that we had just a moment ago right there. So then inside of here, we could add in a case where color is equal to the string red. So if color is equal to red, we can run this entire if statement right here. So I'll tab that in like so. And then for this to be a proper switch statement or a proper case, we always make sure we terminate the case with a return at the very end, so we don't fall through to any other case statements or other cases that we might have inside of here. So I'm going to save this really quickly and do another quick test just to make sure everything still works. And yep, still looks good to me. Now, even with this change, having the nested if statement here is still a little bit challenging to read. So there's yet another way that we could refactor this. This is a totally optional refactor, but it definitely would increase the legibility of what's going on here. So I could say, or I could use something called a ternary expression. A ternary expression is going to essentially check one statement, and then if that statement evaluates to a truthy value, it will run some immediate statement, like in this case return. Otherwise, it will run some other statement like set red. So essentially a ternary is going to do exactly what we have with our if statement right here already, but it's just going to kind of condense down this logic. So to do so, I would write out red plus change greater than 255, or red plus change less than 0, and then here's where the ternary comes in. We'll put in a question mark like so. The question mark means that this is going to be the expression that we want to run if all this evaluates to a truthy value. Unfortunately, we cannot return directly from a ternary statement, so instead we're just going to evaluate this expression to null like so. That essentially means don't do anything. So if this is true right here, if we are going to be outside of our bounds of red, then don't do anything at all. Otherwise, so I'll put a colon there, and that means if this is falsy, then do this. And in this case, I want to update red by calling set red with red plus change. And now we can clean up that entire if statement, and we're down to just one line of code. Now, you could definitely argue that this is kind of hard to read right here, especially if you're not familiar with ternary expressions. But once you start to get a little bit more familiar with them, well, you're going to be very comfortable kind of taking a glance at this and understanding what's going on. So I'm going to again save this, and we'll do another quick test. Now, if you see any error inside of your simulator right now, I can just guarantee you that you've got a typo somewhere inside of this line. So do double check this line of code, double check the entire switch statement, because if you're seeing an error that's only popping up right now, you definitely have a typo right here. Okay, so I'll do another quick test. I'll increase red. Yep. Decrease red. Yep. Still works. Very good. So now we can easily essentially copy paste this statement right here and handle our other two colors of blue and green as well. So I'm going to copy the case red. I'll paste it once and twice. And I'm going to go through it and make sure I change all the color references inside of here. So first I'll update the string to be green. I'll then do red, red, set red, and red. So I have to do 4 more changes here. Make sure you do 4 changes on this line right here. My first one, there's 1. There's 2. I'll do red right here inside of the parentheses. There's 3. And then finally, I will update set red to set green. There's 4. So make sure you do 4 updates as well. Now we can finish up with the last case. So I'll update case red. I'll change that string right there. We want to handle a case of blue here. And now I'll update this line again. Once again, we'll have 4 separate changes. So here's 1. Here is 2. Here is 3. And there's 4. I updated the setter as well. So once again, if you have an error at this point going forward, chances are you made a typo somewhere inside of here. So I beg you, please triple check. Please make sure that case green has no mention of red whatsoever, and make sure that case blue has no mention of red whatsoever as well. And then the last thing we will do here, technically we don't have to do this, but usually by convention in a switch statement, we add in kind of a default case at the very bottom. So we say default like so. So if our color that we passed in did not match red, green, or blue, we'll instead run this case right here, in which case we'll just return and say, don't do anything. Okay, so now our setColor function can handle all these different types of changes. Now that we've updated setColor, we can go back down to all of our callbacks down here, and we can update setBlue and setGreen to use setColor instead. So we'll start off with blue first. I'll change this to setColor and setColor. Again, make sure you update both those. Then as a first argument, we'll pass in blue as a string. And as a second argument, we'll pass in for the first one, positive color increment. And for the second one, we'll do -1 times color increment. All right, so once again, make sure you've got setColor, blue and blue as strings, and then positive color increment and negative color increment. Now we'll repeat that same process on setGreen. So we'll do setColor on both those, string of green, and then our second argument. So we'll add in those commas, and I'll do -1 times color increment, and the first one will be +1. All right, and that's pretty much it. So once again, I gotta beg you, because the changes we're making here, I've made a lot of video courses over time, and the changes we just made, it's extremely likely that you might have just accidentally made a typo somewhere inside of here. So if your application is not working after this, then I can guarantee you got a typo somewhere inside of here or somewhere up inside of that switch statement. So please double check your code, make sure you don't have any typos inside of here. So I'm gonna save this. I'll flip back over, and we can once again do a test. So I'll increase red. Yep, definitely works. Increase blue. Yep, definitely works. And increase green. Yep, definitely works as well. All right, so that's pretty much it. So we've now condensed down all of our state logic. We don't have any additional callbacks or any additional hard to read functions going on inside of here. We have only calls to setColor. And then inside of setColor, we've got some, well, kind of challenging to read stuff, but I'd say overall, once you kind of get used to the syntax, you can definitely understand what's going on. All right, so now that we've fixed all this stuff up, let's take a quick pause right here. There is technically one more little optimization we could make to this function. So we'll take another pause. When we come back in the next video, we're going to take a look at one last way that we can fix all this stuff up just a little bit more than it is already. So I'll see you in just a minute.